So, evening all. Hi all. I hope the stream's starting now. So this is the Kingscrusher radio show, 7th May 2013. So we're going to look at round 5 of the classic Nottingham 1936 tournament. So this is one of the strongest tournaments before World War II stopped most of chess activity. And well, the Avro 1938, and then it stopped. Really, I mean, these are the major tournaments before World War II, I believe. So, okay. This first encounter of round 5, we've got some notes here from Alexander Alekhine as well, which I'd like to refer to. So against Mikhail Botvinnik, known for his great, depth of preparation, he kind of, I think he brought a whole new meaning to preparation in chess, Mikhail Botvinnik, studying systems in great detail. And to this tournament, it seems he had prepared to use the Sicilian defence. So we see from Alexander Alekhine, e4, and Botvinnik replies with the Sicilian defence. After knight f3, we see d6. I hope the board's okay on the stream. I hope the board's the right size. If someone could let me know. I assume it is. So d4 from Alexander Alekhine. So this is in round 5, 14th of August 1936. Round 5, Nottingham 1936 tournament. So we have an open Sicilian. Interestingly, Alekhine in his notes, and I hope these are not fictitious notes, indicates that on another occasion he might have been tempted to play b4, which is of course the wing gambit, for sufficient strategic reasons. But playing for the first time with the Soviet champion, for whose play I have the greatest appreciation, I did not like the idea, this is Alekhine's notes, did not like the idea of being accused of overweening confidence, undue boldness, and this independent of the result of the game, or such things as underestimating, bluster, etc. So Alekhine might have had a more comfortable game. I think he would have got Botvinnik completely out of book with b4. That's a shame. So he plays d4, and we end up, well, we start to see a theoretical debate. C takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, and g6, indicating Sicilian dragon. And the Sicilian dragon, okay, it was smashed by Fischer most of the time, but actually it's had a big resurgence in recent years. Among British grandmasters, Garwin Jones is using it with great success. It's an interesting weapon of choice, especially if you're theoretically prepared. And Botvinnik was a very theoretically prepared player. And he even used to prepare things, for anything, like even with people blowing smoke in his face if he had smoky conditions. He would prepare in all sorts of ways for all sorts of opponents. But this is, now we're going to see some preparation here. But we see the move bishop e2, indicating white's just going to castle kingside, which doesn't seem as ambitious as modern plans to castle queenside. Bishop g7, but still, there's still an option after bishop e3. Is white really going to play something like this, or is he going to castle kingside? Alekhine's notes already intending to make the following pawn advance. Otherwise, I would first play castles, followed by knight b3. So he's actually got an intention here to play a really aggressive pawn advance, which we're about to see. So knight c6, the knight goes to b3, bishop e6, and you might think white might want to routinely castle here. Instead though, we see f4, and so he's prepared to meet d5 with e5. That's the point of playing f4 here. So there's a kind of strategic risk. If we imagine this position just casting routinely, maybe d5, as he indicates, is pretty good for black. There's no answer with e5 here. So f4, bit of prophylaxis. Okay. against d5. Now black castles, and we get to see a crazy move now from Alexander Alekhine. I wonder if anyone can guess this next move in the opening. And I'll give you a clue. Nesmetinov or Tau is my clue. So what do you think Alexander Alekhine played against Mikhail Botvinnik here? If I give you 20 seconds, starting from now. Anyone? Okay, I'll show you. Pat MC, well done. So yeah, don't look at the score sheet now on these quizzes. If you change the tab so you don't see the score sheet. G4, it's crazy, isn't it? G4, but it is supported by this battery to be able to play G4 here, so that looks menacing. Or F5, F5 in particular, to put the bishop back in its box. Looks particularly dangerous positionally. So Alekhine writes, I first saw this interesting move in a game the talented Slovakian master Foltes from the recent tournament at Podobrad, but did not know that it has already been experimented with in the Moscow tournament. As the present game shows, the move permits white to force a quick draw, but no more. So how is this? Well, we have a generalization in chess that you counter a flank attack usually by the center, and here we see a central counter attack d5, even at the cost of a pawn. Mikhail Botvinnik plays d5 here. Okay, we see first f5, pushing the bishop back. Okay, and already played. You see, this move d5 has already been played by Botvinnik against Lowenfish in the Moscow tournament of 1936, and in that game Lowenfish played e5. In fact, I'll just quickly show you that other stem game. There weren't too many theoretical stem games at the time. In that game it saw e5, d4, whoops, oh, edit, undo, retract. Oh, what have I done to the score sheet? Oh, come off it. No. E5. Edit, undo, home. Sorry, pardon me. Put the score sheet in again. Maybe that's my best bet. If I just put the score sheet in again to go to this critical moment. So d5 here. Okay, so e5, new variation. d4, knight takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, knight takes g4, and this position queen d3, a6, castle queenside, with about equal chances. So Botvinnik's already played this before, but now Alekhine, well, at least didn't go completely on that game. He played f5 instead of e5. So we see bishop c8. And now what do we do? I mean, what do we do about this position? Black's got this pressure on e4. We have to take the pawn. So he takes the pawn, knight b4, and you know, this central counter seems quite effective. So what does white want to do in this position? If bishop f3, then there's complications here. What was played was d6, which is interesting. Alekhine considers this as doubtless the best move. If instead he gives, like, if instead he'd taken here, new variation, hg, bishop f3, then in this position, knight takes g4, bishop takes g4, bishop takes g4, queen takes g4, knight takes c2, this is the point. And this is a bit murky, really, here. bishop takes c3 to win d5, and this isn't so hot. With rook and free pawns for 2 minor pieces, so that isn't really that hot. So you can see that in this position, that Alexander, he was put off by that. So this kind of decoy stuff to do with FG, and if bishop f3, I think we simply just take here to win this guy, and that's pretty nasty. And then we've even got the g4 square. I think I just think that's not particularly good on initial inspection anyway. So he plays d6. Alexander plays d6. Okay, this is taken by the queen, and this looks like what's going on here. Why isn't there bishop c5 to fork queen and knight? And that is played, bishop c5. Another option could have just taken the queen off here, but he doesn't consider this that harmful for black. Casting queenside protects c2, and again we have g takes f5. It's certainly not dangerous for black, is his opinion here, Alexander Anakine's opinion here. So let's go back. So bishop c5 looks dangerous, but I know this is all, it shows Mikhail Botvinnik is heavily prepared in these kind of opening systems. It seems he knows what he's doing, or unless he's like improvised this at the time of this game, he's lowering this and he plays queen f4 here. And you might think, well, what is actually going on in this position after queen f4? Well, let's see. I mean, well, it is protecting the knight, pardon me. So the queen is chased here. So the idea is actually coming up. You can't take here immediately because the queen's protecting b4. That's fine. So we want to chase the queen to win the knight. So how do we chase the queen? Well, Alexander played rook f1, trying to chase the queen away from the protection of the knight. White 2 has nothing better than to accept the piece sacrifice, Anakine writes. So queen takes h2, and all of a sudden we've got this diagonal to work with. So white takes this piece, and guess what? This is incredible. Guess what black plays in this position? Without looking at the score sheet, what does black play? If I give you 20 seconds, starting from now. So Botvinnik's already sacked one piece for just one pawn, and a slight weakness on this diagonal. King still in the centre. What does he play now? If I give you 20 seconds starting from now. Anyone? Well, I'll show you because I'm not sure these quizzes. Not too many of you on stream, and quite a few of you on play chess. Thanks, but okay, let's see. If he plays check, it's not as harmful as this move which he plays. Knight takes g4. He sacrifices another piece. So horrible threat of queen g3 now with the knight. So this is taken, and we get check, and it's become clear. This is dangerous. Very dangerous. If king d2, we've got well, I think we might have bishop h6 check here. This would be embarrassing. We don't want to get mated like this, do we? Whoops. So king can't run, and what does the king want to do? If king e2, we for example lose this bishop, and again there's this problem with this bishop h6. And we're going to lose this one, maybe. Maybe black just takes this one, and he's laughing. He's laughing here, isn't he? In this position, he's white's king is just material down, etc. So Alexander, unfortunately, he's wasted the white pieces having this position. He has to play rook f2 and be subjected, embarrassingly, I would say, to a perpetual check, because queen g1 check. If he plays king, well, d2, he's going to lose the rook. If he plays king e2, queen g4, and we're always on this piece after, aren't we? So he just goes back with his rook. It's a disappointing game, perhaps, in that he lost the advantage of having the white pieces. So it goes straight into this early perpetual check. But from an evolution of style perspective, I believe that Mikhail Botvinnik is bringing something very new to the game of chess in this tournament so far. The importance of detailed preparation. He's just easily drawn with the great Alexander Alkine with a bit of preparation. But of course, in those times, there wasn't the internet. You know, there was this tournament in Moscow, which Alexander didn't know Botvinnik had played this before, this whole d5 thing. So it had all been pre-analysed in a tournament he didn't know about. So USSR at the time, they had the advantage. They could play these tournaments and get theoretical armoury to destroy the rest of the world with. And this is the start. This is where it starts, where Botvinnik shines in this tournament. And this is an example of theoretical preparation. But let's have a look at another game. Okay. So Capablanca against Tyler. Let's have a look. So Capablanca. So that was drawn by perpetual check. So Capablanca playing white against Theodore Tyler, who's kind of the English contingent in this tournament, are relatively weak compared to the foreign, you know, a lot of them past world champions, and the two top American players, Ruben Fine, and the two American players. So knight f3 anyway by Capablanca against Theodore Tyler. Knight f6. We see c4, g6. We see a fianchetto variation of the King's Indian defence being played by Capablanca. So not so theoretical. You know, you can just play positionally here as white sometimes. So d4, knight c6, and after castles, bishop g4. With this system, I think a common plan for black is often to play, you know, something like this nowadays. If d5, then knight a5. That sort of plan for b5 play. But we see bishop g4 here. It's like black's volunteering to let go of the light square bishop. So d5, and he just takes that off. Capablanca doesn't mind the double pawns here. Knight e5, queen b3. He's putting pressure on the queen side. Knight fd7. It looks as though knight c5 is a bit of a pain in this position. So he doesn't really want to take on b7. He plays bishop e3. b6. And now knight b5 from Kappa, as though he's threatening knight d4 to c6, for example. So black clamps down on that with c5, just taking that square away for a moment. White takes en passant. Knight takes c6. f4, hitting the knight. Queen c8. Queen a4. Whoops, queen a4. Threatening knight takes d6, I think, for the knight. The knight's a bit loose here. Knight c5 attacking the queen. This is taken, and now the d pawn gets out of the way. D takes c5. Knight c3, and now a really dynamic move actually to Theodore Tyler's credit. I guess he was one of the strongest British players to have been invited to this tournament. He plays a dynamic move against Capablanca. Knight d4, offering an exchange sack, which is far too risky to be taken, I think. It just looks very, very nasty, this position. If this was taken, we're landing with knight f3. If this knight moves, it's even going to be mate, if white's not careful. But knight f3 is sufficient to want to get away from this position like the plague. So something like this is not very nice. Double check, and white could end up getting mated quite prettily, so we don't want to get this kind of position really. So okay, we don't want to win that exchange. So unfortunately for Capablanca though, there's this big knight now sitting on d4 here. So he plays rook a e1 rather wisely. He's going to have to work around this knight, undermining it later with a3 and b4 with sufficient preparation. e6, rook e3, rook b8. Offering a7 now. What is this dynamic play from black all the time? He's offering a7. But why? Maybe what's happened is after rook e3, white's just protected f3. So he's really threatening bishop a8 now. And he's just going to play f3 after to seal things up. So can something else be done about this? I don't think this is any good now, but you know, we can have a look. If we win the exchange here, white has f3 or knight e4, maybe just f3 should do the trick. Unless this is still quite dangerous, knight f5. You know, maybe it's still a little bit dangerous, but it is the exchange down. So black played rook b8. Offering a7, which is snapped up. Rook d8, and it looks as though black's got a nice grip still with this knight. Rook c1, rook d7, kicking the queen. Queen d8. It looks like an iron grip on d4 at the moment. So how does Capablanca deal with this? Rook d1. The queen and knight are holding the rook. There's no little cheapos here. You just take, and you're holding the rook still. Pardon me. Actually, is that the case? No, that's not the case. Alright, I have to pose a question here. If this is the position after rook d1, let's have a quick look at this. In the game we saw rook d6. So what if black went for this move knight e2 check? Oh, it's sufficiently protected. Forget it. Forget it. Knight e2 doesn't work. So rook d1, rook d6. Bishop e4, f5 is played. Bishop goes back, and now black goes crazy. g5. He's trying to sort of get in. Maybe e5. He's trying to provoke this. This is taken. Queen takes g5. One problem though, this e6 pawn might be a liability soon. It's locked down with f4, so e6 is at least another potential target. But white has to do something about this monstrous knight somehow. Queen h6, rook d e1. If only he can get rid of the knight, then he's got access to e6. Actually, the game doesn't last that long from here actually. So how does Capablanca weave his magic? Rook b d8. He plays king h1, king h8. And now, yeah, the natural thing to undermine this knight is to play a3, to be able to play b4, try and undermine this knight. Bishop f8, b4. We see queen h5. White takes on c5. Takes on c5, and now just plays knight b5. So he's hitting these guys. He's trying to get access to e6. After knight takes b5, this is the end of black, really. There is one cheapo around the corner though. After rook d2, can you guess what black is threatening? If white didn't play this, white played queen c4, that's a clue. But if white played casually b6, can you guess what black would play here? If I give you 10 seconds starting, sorry, 20 seconds starting from now. Capablanca didn't play b6, and if he had, what would black play? Anyone? Black to play. Aha! I think someone's got it. Alright, I'm going to show you. So rook takes g2, I think is all over, because the queen's actually controlling e2 here, which means after king takes, rook d2. This is embarrassing. White's getting mated, like for example like this. So what Capablanca did is actually get rid of that cheapo with queen c4. It no longer works because white controls e2 now. So if we play rook g2 here, then the check, we just play rook e2. And actually black feels his position is hopeless here, actually, because e6 is dropping, and we've got this passed pawn as well, but e6 is the main thing. Black actually didn't play on from here. He trusted Capablanca from here and resigned. So Theodore resigned here. We could have a quick check again on this game. So positionally, you know, black's plan seems quite good actually. What he did in effect was kind of knock out this defender of the d4 square, and he had quite a nicely perched knight for a while with this strategy. You know, getting that knight d4 to his credit. And in a lot of games this might have won, you know, maybe against less resourceful people than Capablanca. But Capablanca's avoiding this exchange sack and making bishop takes a8 possible by guarding f3. So he guards f3, which causes black to start panicking. And possibly, if we did a detailed engine check, maybe the exchange sack is the best thing to do here, because, you know, look at the pieces. If we look at the pieces after a5, and if white's really having to play f3, it doesn't inspire that much confidence. This, you know, if it's not even, if it's a raw exchange down, this might, you know, be interesting anyway to check out with an engine in any case. But losing a7 instead, so he loses a7, and black still got this big, you know, knight grip on d4. Now why was rook d6 played? You might wonder. Rook d6 was played. Okay, let's not get into too much detail on this overview. But bishop e4 provoked a weakness. So what was actually, again, maybe white is just intending to play maybe potentially king g2 if he gets the chance, and then work on maybe doubling and then knight b5. So f5, kicking the bishop back here somewhere, and now this g5, very energetic play, but Capablanca just takes. He plays f4. He's undoubled his pawns, of course, and e6 is a new liability. Okay, so this e6 now, I mean, there's in the air is knight b5 actually, not just this plan as I mentioned. Knight b5 is always in the air now to undermine e6. So this is a horrible backward pawn to have self-inflicted. Possibly, you know, black's, he's just made his situation worse because this knight's not going to be there forever, safeguarding his position. So once it is undermined, first by taking on c5, but knight b5 in particular, then e6 is dropping. So this is now horrendous after queen c4. This is also a bad bishop. This bishop's got a fine view of, you know, the queenside pawns as well. Okay, so okay, let's look at another game. So C.H. Alexander against Max Erver. So former Dutch world champion playing with the black pieces against another British player, C.H. Alexander. So c4 from C.H. Alexander, and we see h5. No, we see e5, knight c3, knight f6, g3, and only d5 thrust It's like reverse Sicilian with an extra tempo. Might play in a kind of dragon accelerated in reverse. Knight f3, knight c6, castles, bishop e7. It all looks pretty familiar stuff. d3 so far, after castles, bishop e3, showing the idea that whites might be keen to use the c5 square later. It's a natural square to make use of that semi-open file, that c5 square, to put pressure on this diagonal, maybe, and maybe even later, you know, to try and dislodge this knight to weaken e5. So we see bishop g4, and actually an immediate knight a4, not even using knight e4, doesn't mind giving black the option of taking. Queen d7, as though maybe bishop h3, there's an interest in bishop h3 to get rid of this guy. Rook c1. Okay, and already there seems to be a big exchange sack threat in this position because of knight takes e5 forking here. So actually f6, just safeguarding e5 is played. Bishop c5, trying to get rid of the dark square defender to put the knight nicely on c5. Knight d8, trying to neutralise maybe the c file, preparing to batten down the hatch here. Bishop takes e7, queen takes e7. Now h3, bishop goes back to e6, queen c2, bit of pressure on the queen side. Black now takes on a4. Before, hang on though, you might ask, well, in this position, surely white, why did he play this move? Why didn't he just play knight c5? Is there something really wrong with knight c5? We're not really losing this pawn, are we? Surely. Surely not. Interesting. I mean, if knight c5 is possible, it looks like an aggressive move. A logical follow-up move. I don't. This looks a bit risky to take this pawn because of b3. But anyway, so in the game, yeah, this looks as though this is this the best? That's the question. Knight takes a4, queen takes a4. Has white got anything here? Bishop d5, queen a5. Okay, there's a kind of double attack, which is defended with bishop c6, shielding the c file. Shielding c7, b4, a6, knight d2, offering exchange of bishops here. King h8, queen c5. Okay, it doesn't look too bad again for white against Max Erber. CH Alexander seems to be doing okay in this position, but queen f7 isn't that tame as it might seem. It is attacking a2, and furthermore, this idea of queen h5 would hit these two pawns as well. So this is quite a nifty queen f7. It's quite nifty. White weakens now h3 by playing bishop takes c6, so he's leaving h3 neglected. Knight takes c6, and this pawn is shielded with knight b3, but now there's this double attack, which is embarrassing in some way. So white has to react here to this double attack, seemingly pedantic. He plays d4, leveraging the pin. Can't be taken because of the pin. For anything, maybe d5 to get c7. Okay, so Max plays in this position, rook ad8, and now we see d5, which looks strong, but now black plays knight d4, threatening nasty things like knight takes e2 check. So that's taken. E takes d4, and this doesn't look too promising anymore. If queen takes c7, then queen takes d5, protects b7, for example. That doesn't look entirely promising for white. And this is the game continuation anyway. But if queen takes d4, maybe again, okay, what can black do here? black can gain a tempo, maybe rook takes d5, and then batten down the c-file with hatch with c6 once this queen moves. So white went for this c-pawn and lost his d-pawn. This doesn't look too hot anymore at the moment for white. Queen c4, queen f5, h3 is attacked. And okay, what would happen if white just protected the h3 pawn here? Can he not just defend h3? Possibly, but it's not entirely happy, this position. If he plays king h2, for example, it looks as though rook fe8 is just annoying. Black seems to have ideal pieces. So white played actually rook fd1, offering h3, which is taken. And there's a slight snag here, I think, that if white wants to play rook takes d4, there's rook c8, and this is embarrassing. This skewer is fairly embarrassing here. So white plays instead now queen c7. So he's just lost the pawn. He's a pawn down. Miserable, really. Queen e6, and now e2 is on the fire. He takes on b7. Queen takes e2. He's still a pawn down for not much now. Rook e1, and now he's 2 pawns down. But he's getting this pressure on these 2 pawns. And it looks as though, furthermore, there's going to be a trebling on g7. And I think this has a lot to do now, if we're going to play like this with black, with calculation in advance, unlike blitz games where you couldn't do moves like this, like black is doing here, because black is factoring in this trebling here on g7 by playing this next move, rook g8. So we invite this trebling, 2 rooks and the queen on g7. It looks fairly terminal. Maybe some of you are thinking this is looking terminal, but there's a nasty bit of calculation. Well, very, very nasty for white, happy for black. That black is able in this position to play d3. Max overplays d3. And I wonder if you can see why. Rook takes g7 looks really, really dangerous. Rook takes g7, rook takes g7, threatening to mate the black king. But guess what black plays in this position? If I give you 20 seconds, starting from now. Anyone? How does black save himself here? Will actually win the game as well. Black to play. Only move, maybe? Only move. I'll show you. Unless anyone's going to call now. A move? Oh, okay. Queen b1 check. It's a very, very useful check. Once the king moves, then now d2, protecting h7 from afar. And this pawn's queening. And that's not very nice. Whoa, this is lost. White resigned. So I don't know. Max is very, very, technically, accurate, play here. And by the way, on the YouTube channel loaded today, many years later, I think was it 1956, Max Erver's playing this match against Fischer, who's like 14 years old, and he beats Fischer 1.5-1/2, and that's on the channel YouTube.com Kingscrusher. Max Erver is a very, very dangerous player. Yeah, even 20 years later, even when he's 56, he's also going to become FIDE president after, as well as being a past world champion. He's got a lot of chess qualifications, quite unique to him. So But let's have a look at this game again, how he played against this English opening. So he didn't mind playing like reverse Sicilian style. But I think White's play wasn't really that ambitious for c5. Surely White could improve his play in relation to the c5 square. Because otherwise, you know, it was almost like thematic in many respects. He got rid of the dark square bishop first. But for some reason, you know, why didn't he play, for example, knight c5 here? I'm not really sure how worried he was about Max, but he plays h3 instead. And you know, now, you know, this pawn's kind of a concern, even if it's not immediately a concern. It's so queen c2 instead of knight c5 again, and Black's kind of getting a good position. He's blocking that c file, and now, you know, he hasn't got too much to worry about after queen f7. It's a really nifty move, queen f7. You know, there's loose pawns potentially hanging around here. Losing this light square bishop is a bit of a not very nice usually. Like this, if it's not for anything tangible, you're just kind of weakening things, and that's kind of picked up on. So we get knight d4 here. Black's already, you know, becoming better. He's already equalised. He's better. He's a pawn up, and then he doesn't mind this everything coming to the 7th rank in this final stage of the game. He's got this covered tactically with the check and then the d2. So yeah, great game from Max. So let's have a look at another game. Solomon Floor against Emmanuel Lasker. So Solomon Floor playing white, knight f3, Lasker plays d5. We have d4, knight f6, c4, e6, and a kind of hybrid Nimzo Indians type thing. Queen's Gambit declined. Bishop b4, White takes on d5, e takes d5, bishop g5. And now this is really odd. I don't know what Lasker's playing at in this game, but he plays queen d6, which can't be good, surely. Cannot be. White just takes on f6 here, and okay, you know, I don't know. Queen takes f6 might be possible here. It looks as though it might be possible, unless anyone sees a refutation of queen takes f6. Is there a refutation? Please let me know, because otherwise I think the game continuation just looks plain ugly. He played g takes f6. Just looks ugly, this structure. What can we do with the structure? We can blockade on f5. We can put pressure on d5. I can't see it myself immediately anyway. If there's a big problem with taking, you know, maybe you know, the check, we have knight c6. I can't see knight e5. I don't know, but for whatever reason he played this. So queen c2, already eyeing that kind of juicy f5 square. Knight c6, e3, knight e7. White's got a strategically kind of pleasant plan, clear cut, just to sort of exploit this structure. a3, Lasker takes, queen takes c3, f5. The dynamism is reduced considerably with g3 now, just fixing this pawn. Bishop d7, knight e5, and the knight's got a beautiful kind of blockade square available. Knight d3. Okay, so positional moves from Solomon Floor against the compromised pawn structure. and doesn't mind the exchange of queens. And now we've got a really crystal clear position for this, what's known as the minority attack. If white wants to use the minority of pawns here against the majority to inflict, you know, structural damage, yeah, with b5 soon. So we're going to see this minority attack in action, and everyone knows what the minority attack is, don't they? It's not a film on IMDb. Do you know what the minority attack is? Well, you're going to see one in this game. So king g7, b4, a6, a4. You see this minority of pawns going to inflict structural damage. And there's already structural damage here, of course, and a beautiful blockade square on f4. King f6, rook c2, king e6, b5. Here it is. You see, we're going to isolate a lot of these black pawns as well. Even if black's winning a pawn, it's going to be really nasty. And d5 will be weaker, b7 will be weaker. These pawns are going to be diced, really. So a takes, king d6, trying to defend off a little bit. White takes, and now the knight's now got c5 to enjoy, which it goes into. And look at that, bishop's a bit miserable. Rook d8, rook a1, and this is looking nasty already. This idea of playing like this in principle for this kind of tactical idea is already on the cards. Bishop e6, rook c8, rook b8, rook a7, rook b6. If only the bishop wasn't defending d7, this would be mating, wouldn't it? If only the bishop wasn't defending d7. So we see this move, bishop h5, rook fb8, and guess what white plays in this position? If I give you 20 seconds starting from now. Floor's calculations are pretty good. Like Max Erber, really. He's a very good player as well, Solomon Floor. So what does he play in this position? White to play. I've given you a clue already. I've given you a clue. Yep. Bishop takes f7, trying to deflect this bishop away from d7. So this would be mating. So Lasker plays this check. It doesn't actually change much the situation. White takes on b1, takes king g2, and it's still going to be mate on d7. But it looks as though, hold on a sec, does black have the last laugh here? Because he plays knight c8, which looks like a dangerous forcing move initially, because the rook's hanging and the bishop's hanging. Can you see what white played in this position? That's why you need a calculation for this. What does white play here? Unfortunately for Manuel Lasker. You know, if he moves this rook now, well, maybe it's not so terrible anyway. Well, it might be. If he moves the rook, possibly white can get away with rook a8. I'll just show you. Maybe there's other moves here. White just plays a forcing move himself now. Rook b7, just attacking this guy. So he's gaining the critical tempo needed to do something about this bishop. So after taking its check, so he just nabbed a pawn. Takes on e6, king f3, knight e7, check, and he resigns. It's a really miserable position, actually, and actually a miserable game. And it all seems to stem, all the problems seem to stem from this really weird decision in the opening here to play g takes f6. Did anyone have a theory on this out of interest? On why queen takes f6 was unplayable? I think it might be okay, but maybe he just didn't want to do that given he played queen d6. That wasn't his idea. I'm not really sure, but anyway. it looks as though Salomon Floor punished him very accurately in this game, positionally and then tactically. Okay, so got one more game to show you from this round. Tartakower against Thomas. Unless we want to quickly reinforce this particular Lasker game, should we quickly reinforce it as revision? So White basically didn't mind getting the queens off soon and playing for this dreaded minority attack. So it's crystal clear strategy in these old master games, without the pollution of all the modern opening theory, to see some ideas relating to the soul of chess, the pawn structure. And this is a key idea in pawn structure chess, that you can play this minority attack to inflict structural damage. It's fully demonstrated by this game here, but the tactical, the king trying to come to the rescue causes tactical issues on d7 here, as is demonstrated by White as well. So even this seemingly resourceful, heroic king coming to d6 to try and save the situation becomes a source of liability because of this rook d7. So it's a master game. It's definitely a master class game here, and how you can win with a minority attack and playing against double pawns in general. Okay, so we'll go on to another game. So Tartakower playing White against George Allen Thomas. So all the British players are getting beaten up in this tournament so far, up until round 5, and that's probably not going to change. I don't want to ruin suspense, but the other players were just, including past world champions, were formidable, and Botvinnik, okay, was going to later become a world champion himself. So Tartakower against George Thomas, f4. So he's playing the birds opening. Tartakower's got a good sense of humour with quotations and his openings as well. So reverse Dutch defence, called the birds opening nowadays, or maybe it was called the birds back then, I don't know. So d5, knight f3, g6, e3, bishop g7, bishop e2, black plays c5, and it looks thematic to try and play for this d4 after castles knight c6. Now White actually plays a really good move here. Given black's strategic pawn move might be d4, White prepares for this d3, so it's like a reverse classical Dutch, that you want to be able to answer d4 with e4. And like the reverse classical Dutch, we see this queen move in common. Black would be doing, black would be doing queen moves like this in the Dutch, if it was Dutch defense territory. Forget the rest of the pieces. But queen coming like this, maybe like this, e5, this sort of plan, reverse Dutch defense type plans. So queen c7, knight c3, a6, now e4. So reverse classical Dutch. How's the extra tempo going to work out here? d4, e5. Okay, black doesn't really want to move this knight because knight d5 looks as though that could be a pain. There's also if queen d7 and knight b6. So d takes c3, e takes, bishop takes, b takes c3, and White's got good central control of d4 here. b5, as though b4 is pretty serious stuff though on the diagonal. But what about the c5 pawn? Bishop e3. Black goes ahead with b4. And Tartakower reacts with d4, shielding his c3. But this does look a bit strange now, this situation evolving here. B takes c5. B takes c3, pardon me. D takes c5. So what's happened here? This bishop's kind of blocked in by its own pawn. White might enjoy the b file, but black's got a share of the b file. Let's see What about the c2 pawn? What about bishop f5? That's played here. Bishop d3. Tartakower is not, of course, an ex-world champion, so maybe he's one of the weaker of the foreign contingents, but nevertheless pretty good player, relatively speaking. But here he doesn't seem to have such a convincing position at the moment with the white pieces. After bishop takes d3, c takes d3, it looks as though black should be doing okay. Rook d1, but imagine d4 happens, then this c3 pawn is cut off. Okay, so c2, trying to swap the c pawn for the d3 pawn, which happens. So we have that swap. Black castles. Okay, the situation is clarified a little bit. Black seems to be doing still very well, actually, because black can double rooks on that d file, for example. The pawn doesn't seem to be going anywhere. It's neatly blockaded. This pawn is on a different square to the bishop, which seems blocked in. This bishop seems to be enjoying the diagonal. White looks fundamentally passive here. Okay, queen e2, rook fd8, and we see this exchange of rooks. Rook d2, that's taken. Knight takes d2. Knight d4. Okay, queen f2 looks sufficient to handle the situation here, thankfully, because queen takes c5. I think we've got knight b3, nasty double attack. That should be useful for white. Or is it? Is it? No, even worse. Hang on. Even worse might be knight e4. Just trying to maybe take here. Let's get this right. So say here, knight takes, queen takes. I think we've got rook d1 here. How does black defend this? Mind you, e5 or knight e6. Okay, so queen f2. What happened after queen f2? Black didn't take on c5. He played knight f5. If he could get away with if he could get away with queen takes c5, maybe he should have. Does anyone want to quickly calculate this then before we move on from this position? Just to be on the safe side here. Can we completely rule out that queen takes c5 loses? Shall we attempt to rule this out? Does this lose? Can anyone tell? Immediately? If I give you 20 seconds, starting from now. Right, if there's no comments, I'll just go into the game continuation, because I can't turn on an engine myself. It would just kill my machine here. Knight b3 definitely followed by rook d1 conjunction. Okay, let's have a look then again. Knight b3. Right, say we put the queen here. Where do we want to put the queen? Away from the pin. Okay, just rook d1. Yeah, it looks enough, doesn't it? Yeah. Where else can the queen go? If the queen goes here, rook d1. In this position, rook d1 though, there's knight e6. This is what concerns me. What would you play in this position then? After knight b3, queen b4. You see, I don't trust this game particularly. I don't know, maybe black was in time trouble and it was only moved 24. I mean, I think their time shows at move 40. Oh, hang on, we just take here. What if we just take? We can even take this. We can take like this, you know, because we get this kind of skewer on the queen. You know, if this doesn't work, we can take with the rook. But this will work as this might not work because of that. But we just minimal. We take with the rook here, don't we? Yeah. All right. So I don't know. It's worth checking out at some point. Maybe I'll put some analysis maybe on YouTube if someone wants to mention that on YouTube. Okay, later we'll upload it. So Queen F2. So we have Knight F5. So White's kept his C5 pawn and now enjoys a massive position. Well, a much better position than maybe he should have had. Rook D3, Bishop C1, Queen C6, Queen E2, Rook D4. Still a lot of pressure though. Rook E1. Now Black plays H5. Okay, so we see Bishop B2, and White's even getting rid of this bishop. So Rook D7, Bishop takes G7, Knight takes. Okay, now we see Knight G5 offering C5 again, but this time it's at the expense of A6. So Queen takes C5, Queen takes A6, Rook A7, the Queen drops back to D3. Horrible threat, Queen D8 here. That stopped. Queen B3 now on F7. E6. Rook D1, and we see Knight F5. So even here it looks as though Black should be almost okay. But now we see a tactic from Tartakower. What does White play in this position? If I give you 20 seconds starting from now, can you see a nice useful tactic here? So what does White play in this position? Anyone? Clue. I can give you a clue. There's a loose piece here. So with loose pieces you want to look for double attacks in particular. So yeah, White can invoke a double attack scenario with Knight takes F7 because now if this is taken, which it wasn't, then we would have Queen B7 check, I think. So it was not taken. We see Knight G7 just trying to protect E6. Unfortunately, you know, White's all over Black now after this. So Queen F2. Okay, Queen B7, and now he's even threatening Queen F7 again here. Rook A7 defending resourcefully against that. Queen E4, but G6 is horrible. Knight F5. Knight takes G6. Queen takes A2. Queen F3. Black's fallen apart on the king's side. Queen A4 attacking the rook. Queen E2 is played here. Was that another? Oh, also F4 was. Actually, is this a little trap or something? On Queen takes H5, I think there's another little trap going on with Rook H7. This would be good because I think we've got Knight G3 check here, trying to deflect the Queen away from D1. This isn't good for White, is it? So Tartakower played Queen E2 just on E6, Queen E8, Knight E5, Rook A4. Now we see Knight D7 threatening Knight F6 check, Queen F7, Queen E5 protecting F4. It's coming in with Knight F6 as well potentially. King H7, but now Knight C5 actually is used instead of attacking the rook, attacking the pawn. Rook A7, Knight takes E6, black's crumbling. King G6, Knight G5, Queen E7, Queen B8, Rook A6, check, Queen G7, white is 2 pawns up, check. After Queen C8, finally, well, it's another double attack, nasty. White, well, actually, black resigned here. I guess he could try and, if he tries to, he resigned here, but if he tries to defend like this, there's still a little bit of work to do, maybe for whites, because he's got to be concerned about this back row. I don't think he can necessarily no, or maybe he can just play Rook D7 here. This looks crushing. That looks crushing. Okay, so black resigned in this position. It wasn't an amazingly convincing game from white, probably. It looks as though black had a lot of play there. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the games this week and you got something from them. I'll put it on YouTube if you want to ask questions on the YouTube video. You're most welcome. So, okay, thanks for coming. Okay, see you next week. Thanks very much.